Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou nā manuhiri. No mai, haere mai, ki tēnei whare karakia o te atua. Ko John DiLeo toko ingoa. No reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tatou katoa. Welcome all, church family and friends, visitors, and guests today to this place of worship and fellowship made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for 120 years. Welcome also to those joining us remotely or watching the recording at a later time. My name is John DiLeo, and I'll be leading our service today. For the welcome words, I chose a piece entitled Welcome Home by Rachel Rott. Welcome, you questioners, seekers of truth with a capital T, pilgrims longing for sanctuary, travelers needing harbor from the storm. Welcome those who are holding on by a thread, determined breakers of the chains of loneliness and isolation. You pushed through your fear because something told you that you deserve to belong. Welcome home. Welcome those who braid ropes again and again. You've been there for our siblings who were just hanging on. You gave them a hand into community and told them they could rest here. Welcome, you who seek spiritual and religious community for your children and grandchildren. You entrust your young people here, and we as a community commit to nurture and respect them. Welcome, children and youth, please someday. You give us the gift of your wisdom, your joy, your curiosity, and your trust that we will hold all of it safe. Welcome, welcome home. How do we make this tender place wider? How do we stretch into a bolder welcome, a radical generosity of the heart? Can we imagine ourselves the stewards and ushers, not only into this space, but into our circle of belonging? Can we commit and recommit to being accountable to one another as an anti-racist, anti-oppressive community that centers marginalized voices, that listens to those voices, especially when what they are saying is hard to hear? Can we be willing to change? When we break our agreements with one another, can we offer amends? Can we be humble and generous? There is grace enough here. There is in this place the possibility of healing, of repair, of making things right within ourselves, between us, and with the wider world. There is in this place possibility. Welcome home. I've also chosen opening words titled Call from Beyond by Susan Magan. From beyond the playful summer clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line, from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers, we hear the call to look and listen carefully, to turn away from a world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here and together at home in this evolving place, home in this ever-changing breath and body, home in this dewy morning, even as it reaches toward a high, hot noon. Wouldn't that be nice? We hear the call from far beyond and deep within, and we do not hear it alone. Come, let us worship together. Okay, first, one comment. You may have noticed I have a slightly froggy voice. I am dealing with a lingering cough and rough throat and stuff, which tests negative repeatedly, I swear. So hopefully I'll be able to get through this without a coughing jag, but it will still show up in my voice. For today's songs, I selected 3 segments from a performance of Carl Orff's Carmina Burana. The recording from which I've exported samples is of a performance by the Temple University Symphony Orchestra and Temple University Combined Choirs on April 1st, 2016. The performance was filmed at Horizon Hall in the Kimmel Center for the Performing Arts in Philadelphia and was conducted by Andrea Stelf. My selecting this music, as well as the sermon I'll be reading later, probably came from a not very good place. I was thinking about the facts, things going on in the world and in my life are things we've seen before. And that generated in me a resigned sense of, oh boy, here we go again. Such thoughts often bring to mind the cycle in Carmina Burana, along with the lyrics and tone of O Fortuna, the first and last segment of the composition. O Fortuna is written and performed in Latin, but here's the English translation for your enjoyment. O fortune, like the moon, you are changeable, ever waxing and waning. Hateful life first oppresses and then soothes as fancy takes it. Poverty and power, it melts them like ice. Fate, monstrous and empty, you whirling wheel, you are malevolent, well-being is in vain and always fades to nothing. Shadowed and veiled, you plague me too. Now through the game, I bring my bare back to your villainy. Fate is against me in health and virtue, driven on and weighted down, always enslaved. So at this hour, without delay, pluck the vibrating strings, since fate strikes down the strong man, everyone weep with me. Now, it's an absolutely beautiful piece when sung in Latin, but when you know what it means, oof. But in other words, hang on to your butts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Whether you are from the south, the east, the north, or the west, whether you were born into this faith, found it, or it found you, whether you feel at home or are still trying to find your place, whether you believe in God, are open to mystery, or still have no idea, whether you are unemployed, underemployed, cobbling things together, overworking, or in school, whether you are holding anxiety, grief, confusion, anger, hope, restlessness, or deep peace, Unitarian Universalism has a place for you. It is right here, and this chalice is lit for you. If you wish, you're welcome to recite with me the covenant of our congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God. But this time I'm going to play a recording, Spirit of Life. Because I like it so much, and because I'm just lazy enough not to look for another one I like as much, I'm again using the recording by the All Souls Virtual Choir of the All Souls Church in Washington, D.C., which includes the verse first hummed, then sung in Spanish, then in English. I know we all know the English lyrics, and for a refresher, you can look in the hymnal at number 123. So I'll recap only the Spanish lyrics before I play the video. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cantale tu compasión, sopla al volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraígame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. For today's intermediate song, I selected a light-hearted instrumental segment from the first major section of Carmina Burana, In Spring. This piece, titled simply Tanz, or Dance, conveys the joy of spring, young love, and the promise of great things to come. This morning, I'm going to read a sermon without additional commentary. It was written by Mary Wellemeyer and is available on the Unitarian Universalist Association website. Mary didn't provide a bio, so I can't tell you much about her. The sermon was also undated, but a couple of quick Google checks based on some things she mentions confirms that she wrote it sometime in 2009. The sermon is titled, Getting Through the Night. Bob and Addie Polk had moved into the neighborhood in 1970 when the little houses were relatively new, and through the years, they had been friendly with their neighbors. After her husband died, Addie kept more to herself, increasingly limited by declining health in older age. Bob Dylan and his wife next door did stop in to visit with her regularly and helped her a little with the yard work, but still, the house fell prey to deferred maintenance and came to look pretty shabby. It was a fine spring day when the sheriff's deputies came. They waited outside for a while, waiting for the representative from Countrywide Home Loans. Bob Dylan joined them, curious what was going on. He was surprised to learn that Addie's house had been foreclosed. 90 years old and hard of hearing, she often didn't answer her phone or even her doorbell. She had no children or other relatives in town. The town was Akron, Ohio, and this is all based on a story by Peter Boyer in the New Yorker magazine from last November 24th. Addie drove herself to the grocery store and every Sunday to the Antioch Baptist Church nearby. She was independent. The person from Countrywide never showed up, and the deputies were ready to leave when they heard a noise from inside the house. They began to be concerned that Addie might have fallen or something. The neighbor, Bob Dylan, thought he knew a way to get into the house, and the deputies encouraged him to go ahead. He found her lying in bed with a gun beside her. She had shot herself as the deputies waited to carry out the eviction. The story has a slightly better ending than you might think, but still not great. Addie was taken to the hospital where she recovered from the gunshot wound. She had actually shot herself in the shoulder. The foreclosure was canceled, and as it turned out, she went from the hospital to a nursing home rather than returning to her house. The foreclosure drama took place on October 1st of last year. She died peacefully in early April. Addie was reported early on as saying from her hospital bed, "It was a crazy thing to do." Yes, it was a crazy thing to do. She had gotten tangled up in financial finagling to supplement the very small income she was left with after her husband died. And she hadn't talked it over with anyone. The article did not quote the pastor of the Antioch Baptist Church, but I can assure you that she or he would have been deeply saddened never to have heard a word about all this trouble until it came out in the papers. Pastors may not be able to provide the material help people need in tough economic times, but we are able to provide encouragement and help people untangle their thinking about what they might feel are embarrassing or even shameful private matters. Getting through that feeling that this is a private situation that has to be kept close is really important to finding a way through. The way may not be easy, and it's really a good thing to have some people on your side. Major financial trouble is very complex for people. Not only are there practical issues about keeping a roof over your head and food on the table, but there are issues of identity. Who am I if I have to give up my home? Who am I now that I'm not employed in my profession? Who am I after applying for hundreds of jobs in my field and finding nothing? Then there's the whole litany. People in our family don't go bankrupt. People in our family don't go on unemployment. People in our family, and so on and so forth. We understand who we are in terms of our work, and also to a certain extent in terms of our possessions and our ability to provide for our families. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services assures us that getting through tough economic times can be hazardous to your health, even to the point of making suicide seem like an attractive option. Our faith tradition offers some guidance for dealing with the stress that comes with financial difficulties. For one thing, we are a people who believe in science and the scientific method. That means making observations, gathering data, and then analyzing what you find. In the case of financial difficulty, you'll want to notice what is happening in the realm of money, debt, and possessions, of course. But you'll also want to notice if you have any of the warning signs of depression, anxiety, substance abuse, or compulsive behaviors such as overeating, excessive gambling, overspending, or oversexing. The Health and Human Services experts suggest being on the lookout for persistent sadness or crying, excessive anxiety, lack of sleep or constant fatigue, excessive irritability or anger, increased use of alcohol, inappropriate use of medications, increased use of illegal drugs, difficulty paying attention or staying focused, apathy, or just not being able to function as well as usual at work, school, or home. If you have had a weakness for some compulsive behavior in the past, you'll need to watch for that behavior at this stressful time, of course. All of us are different under stress, but many of us turn to ways of dealing with it that are just not at all helpful. Anxiety itself has physical aspects: a pounding heart, sweaty hands, headaches, indigestion. An anxious person may hold their breath or breathe shallowly. You can help your anxiety simply by remembering to breathe deeply and slowly, but it may take more than that. So our spiritual tradition says, notice what's happening. Don't so much fret as make lists. Be systematic about what there is to be concerned about and decide what your next steps need to be. If you are getting in your own way, regard yourself with compassion. There are reasons why you are acting as you are, even if what you are doing might ultimately be counterproductive. Take time to sit with your feelings about the situation rather than rushing around trying to make things better. Allow a sense of perspective to enter your thoughts. Recognize that this is happening in the midst of a life that still has goodness and hope in it. If you start in on worrying over and over, remind yourself, wait, I've already worried about this before. Once is enough. If you are a person who talks things over to work through your troubles, be alert about how much talking you're doing. It's the same as fretting if you just go on and on. Make lists and remember what you've worried about before. Our tradition says, move toward the sources of goodness and hope. That may mean prayer for you, or it may direct you toward the actual live humans who share your life, or both. Evoking the spirit of our spiritual ancestor, Henry David Thoreau, you might want to take time for long walks or do other physical exercise that allows your mind to settle into a deeper place where the awfulness of what's happening just now looks like a passing dark cloud. It's still awful, but it's not the only thing there is. Once you determine it's not the end of the world, though, you have to face it. Putting it in perspective doesn't mean you can run away. There's the joke about the person of faith who is trapped at home by rising floodwaters. I've heard this told with both male and female protagonists, so take your pick. Someone comes by with a rope that's anchored to the shore and says, "Hold on and we'll walk to safety." The person declines, saying, No, God will provide." The waters rise and someone comes by in a rowboat as our person is looking out the second floor window. "Climb in and I'll take you to shore." But no, God will provide. And finally, as the person is sitting on the roof, a helicopter comes and lowers the ladder. Person waves them off. No, God will provide. So you can imagine the scene when our person reaches the pearly gates of heaven. Why didn't God save me? We sent you a rope, a rowboat, and a helicopter. What more do you want? Ours is not a faith that offers to save you unless you do your part. You need to manage your anxiety, and you need to find the rope, rowboat, or helicopter you need. In the spirit of science, a cool-headed analysis of what's really happening leads to discovery of solutions. Maybe you really do need to sell your house, or declare bankruptcy. Maybe getting a roommate would work. Maybe moving in with relatives for a while is an answer. Maybe you need to find another kind of job. Maybe that means finding a way to take some training in another field. Finding a way to face your options fearlessly and truthfully is in the tradition of our faith. For some of us, the answer comes in careful analysis of data. For others, it comes by intuition as the options are spread out in general form in front of us. Be yourself and be truthful with yourself. As much as we are self-reliant and scientific-minded, we are a people who believe in the wisdom of other humans. Reach out to others. Find the resources that can help you with your material situation. When you are anxious, it may be hard to reach out and trust, but reach out anyway. And keep in mind the things you need to learn about these others in order to trust them. Give them a chance. Find a support group if your anxiety has generated other problems in your life. It's true, when you most need the services of mental health professionals, you may not have any insurance and your income may be limited to unemployment benefits. But if you can manage it, get the professional help you need. So our tradition teaches that it's important to manage worry in healthful ways. Slow down and notice compassionately. I lost my place. And notice compassionately what the situation really is. Begin to get a sense of perspective and breathe. Breathe into the stress and anxiety and let it go. In our devotion to truth, we say, look fearlessly and compassionately at the situation and the possible solutions. Reach out to others to develop your thinking, because when something is a really big deal for you, it's really likely that you aren't seeing clearly. Those others may not be right either, but talking it over will help you think. Remember always that you are not alone. Addie Polk was as alone as she was in her house facing foreclosure, at least partly because of her own choices. Yet there is a sense in which she was not alone. There were kind people next door, a faith community that had been her church home for 40 years, and a group of longtime women friends who gathered every Sunday for lunch and laughter after church. And she was old. The very elderly can be excused for many failings. But those of us who are not in our 90s when disaster strikes, it's time to turn to the resources of faith. And right at the heart of our faith is the confidence that other humans can help. So there you have it. Cultivate calmness and courage with meditation, prayer, making lists, and talking things over. Be analytical. Seek the truth about the situation and your options for dealing with it. Seek guidance both from the deep truth within and from actual people you know and trust. Grab hold of the rope, jump into the rowboat, climb the ladder into the helicopter, and survive. You are more than your job and more than your most important possession. Respect the worth and dignity of every person, including yourself. Live life even in the darkest times, and you will make it through the night. Yeah, now here's a little challenge for everyone. See if you can guess some of the things I've been thinking about lately as I went looking for what to read today. Now, please join me if you like, as we say the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. For our closing song, we'll be playing the end of Carmina Burana. This excerpt is comprised of three elements: Dulcissime-Ave, formosissima, and a reprise of O Fortuna. The counterpoint between the first two sweet, hopeful melodies with young lovers speaking adoringly to one another as they prepare to consummate their union, followed immediately by the violent crash into the final segment, is one of my favorite moments in music. Here's the English translation of the first two elements. Dulcissime, sweetest one. I give myself to you totally. And Ave formosissima. Hail, most beautiful one, precious jewel. Hail, pride among virgins, glorious virgin. Hail, light of the world. Hail, rose of the world. Blanche Fleur and Helen, noble Venus. Great stuff, huh? All right, and now for our closing words. We have a calling in this world. We are called to honor diversity, to respect differences with dignity, and to challenge those who would forbid it. We are a people of a wide path. Let us be wide in affection and go our way in peace. Amen. As you can no doubt tell from my choices for today's service, I'm of the opinion that hard times are coming, of much the same form, and sadly for many of the same reasons as we've seen them before. The discussion questions I've thought of really focus on our role in weathering and helping others to weather what I see as an oncoming storm. So the first question, do you think I'm being overly pessimistic, or will things really get that bad? However bad things do get, how can we prepare individually and as a congregation to get through it? What can we do, again, both individually and as a congregation, to help others get through it? And what should we be doing to try to break this cycle? Thank you.